Who are the top 4 teams in your eyes in college basketball right now?
This is the way that I've had it since we debuted our first bracket on SI.com a couple of weeks ago, very last week in December. Villanova, Kansas, Baylor, and UCLA. I know there's been a little bit of clamoring for maybe changing this up a little bit, but I think at this stage of the game, these 4 teams have proven themselves worthy of being on the top line. No one's going to argue about Villanova. No one's going to argue about Kansas. The way that those 2 teams have played this season, the way that they have dominated the first few weeks of their respective conferences, those are totally non-controversial. Baylor, UCLA, I think there are a couple of other teams in the mix for their spots on the top line. But for now, I think that they have kept themselves at least a half step or a step ahead of some teams like Gonzaga, Kentucky, likely the next 2 contenders to move up to the top line.
Michael, I agree with you. I really like Baylor, but I'm just curious as to why you kept them as a 1 seed after that blowout loss to West Virginia.
Well, first and foremost, that was a game that they were expected to lose. I think a lot of people get tied up in the rankings and sort of use the word upset incorrectly. West Virginia was a 5.5-point favorite in that game in Morgantown. Now, it got ugly and it got out of hand for Baylor, but that would have been a great win for them, despite the fact that they were the number 1 team in the country at the time and West Virginia was the number 10. I think that we're this far out. Yes, it does feel like it's closer, just 7 weeks, like Michael said, but we're still pretty far out. A lot of basketball to be played. You want to guard against wild swings in your bracket at this stage of the game. You know, I don't want to take Baylor off the top line because they lose to a great West Virginia team, only to return them in a week or 2 when they get a big win of their own. I think that when you look at Kentucky, you look at Gonzaga, and you look at Baylor, probably the 3 teams that I would say are fighting for that 4th number 1 spot at this time. Baylor's overall body of work just a little bit stronger than what we've seen from Kentucky and from Gonzaga. And they're obviously not entrenched. We do still have 2 months to go, but I think that with what they've done to this point, they deserve to stay as a number 1 seed, despite getting blown out by a great West Virginia team in Morgantown.